Hello, everyone. This is Coach Dr. Jessie Bowen, and welcome to our training program today. This is part of our podcast and the training program for the Martial Arts Extraordinaire magazine. We like to congratulate all of our writers in the magazine, all the information they're sharing, and they're discovering themselves in the writing and how to share information. And of course, I've got my partner here with me today, Coach Nathan Ray. And of course, he has an article in the magazine. And he is not only a martial arts school owner, but he is truly an owner because he owns his building. And so that's what he wrote a great article in the magazine. And we're going to be covering that article. But Coach Ray, let's first of all, how are you doing? I get to talking and I'm just going.
Ready for action. Well, I'm happy, radiant and free, shining bright like diamonds, getting after it. Happy to be here with you and excited about this subject because I think it's going to maybe shed some light on there may be some artists and not just martial artists, but there may be other people who have thought about, hey, maybe I should go this way versus the rental way. So I think hopefully today's will shed a little light and maybe give someone some clarity.
Well, really, as I look back over my life, and this is what we call legacy. Okay, what did I do? I may have done different in there. I ran my business for 39 years, and I really didn't think seriously about owning my business. I mean, this is what we've always done, or owning the building.
Right.
This is what we've always done. This is the way we've done it. So let's just
you mean renting?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I was renting. I never thought about owning my business.
Okay, got you.
Owning the property, the building itself. And
right.
It wasn't until I sold it that I realized, man, I should have bought the building and owned it. Because when I look back and did the math, I was at that particular location, great location in a shopping center, great location. My rent was $8,000 per month. And when I did the math on it over that 10 years, I had spent $1 million. So I am a millionaire.
Yes. You absolutely are. Yeah.
But if I had, if I had invested in building my own building, so I would say to anyone that's out there and you're new into the martial arts business or any business, property is still a great value. Now, I purchased my home in 2000. And I was really excited. And I had, been married and had owned a couple of homes and stuff. But I myself, Jesse had never purchased his own home, my home, my down payment, my
only child coming
my
out.
only child syndrome, right? That's probably what was wrong with my marriage. I had only, I guess I shouldn't go there. Okay, let's stay on topic here. But right. I built my home in 2000. I sold in 2016. So I really owned that property for 16 years, and I bought it cheap. The mall was just starting. Well, anyway, I got such a great return off of that investment. So when I retired from Duke University, sold my martial arts school, I sold my home. It's great. I'm good. I'm doing good. But as I thought about it, I didn't own the building, so I couldn't sell the building. So I think it's a great thing for me. My advice from where I am today in the martial arts, 50 years, business owner of a martial arts school for 39 years. My advice to you, stop renting. Start building a legacy, because if I had owned the property, then I would have had that revenue to add to my financial legacy as I move to another career. So, that's what
Yeah.
I tell
Right.
martial arts is that, own your building.
Yeah, I would agree. I've owned, and actually, I don't even know if you know this, but I owned the church across the street. I had that property as well. Then I had a property in Raleigh, a residential property. So, and I don't think about these things a lot until we start talking about it. And we're going to do a course on it. Actually, I already started on a course for everybody. And I know we talked maybe, we always saying, hey, this is going to be the next book, and but I started working on a course for everyone as well. But because it's just a shift in your mentality because you're paying anyway. The question is like, what is that mental shift? And a lot of times, I think it's what you said earlier. It's just what we've been doing. It's just what we've known so far, and we just do what's familiar. And and it's just it seems like that's the easiest way to go. Where in fact, if you might have to do some heavier lifting in the beginning to get things moving, but once you got it going, sometimes your mortgage will be way less than a rent.
Oh yeah. And let's stop for a second. Let's go back. Let's introduce
Sure.
you.
Yes. Okay.
Everyone, we
Yeah.
have
Sorry, I jumped
with
right in
us
there.
with us today Grandmaster Nathan Ray. He's a 10th degree black belt. He's out of Knightdale, North Carolina. I've been knowing him since he was probably 3 or 4. I don't know. Maybe a little bit older. But anyway, I've always was impressed by the things he was doing. And we're going to let him tell you a little bit about his experience. When did he build his school? I remember that. He's already shared some about the property. So he's the guy thinking about investment and thinking about property. Has a beautiful school in Knightdale, and he built his school when there was nothing there.
Right.
Knightdale. I don't even think they had a PO box or anything like that. But such
Definitely
a
country.
wise
Definitely the country.
decision. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so Coach Ray, let's get there. Just take okay. Tell me about your experience. School me, and so when I leave this podcast today, I want to go out and call my real estate person.
Okay. Yes. Well, thank you for that. Well, just like everyone, starting in martial arts as a young boy, and you were a big influence on me. And it begins, and I don't want anyone to take this like a cliche, but it really begins with your vision and your excitement about martial arts and on what level you want to play at. Number one, you got to be committed to this thing, or whatever you're doing. You need to be on a level where you're absolutely committed to it, because this is owning a building is a long-term play, and it has a lot of great points to it. But it's kind of one of those things you need to be all in. If you're going to dibble and dabble, it's definitely not the route to go. But if you're all in and you make your decision, I made that decision growing up. I came up in the Karate International chain of schools, and number one, they were business oriented. It was done. We were taught to be professionals, and what I saw growing up were men and women who were doing martial arts as professionals. That's the first thing. You need to have some business training. It's you need to see from the lens of business, not just your passion for martial arts and the practice there. And so there needs to be a balance with that. So growing up, at 14 years old, I had already been moving around with my sensei, and going to different programs, getting qualified, uh, getting on a level where I could run a program and learning what that entailed. And the cool thing was I remember us going and doing a program, but getting behind the scenes, not just counting numbers and you do the technique, but what does it take to set it up? You got to be able to speak to someone. You got to be able to communicate. got to have some people skills, and you got to be able to develop relationships. Those are all very important because at 14 years old, I remember saying, this is what I want to do with my life. I made that commitment. And so the vision, I started having this vision of being able to do this thing, qualifying myself. And then uh, as time moved on, at when I was 14, I took on my first students at my parents' home. Start from where you are and don't limit yourself. Because I started in their home teaching. I took on some students here locally, and they were actually classmates of mine in high school. And so that's where the seed of the dojo was born. But I always had a vision that I wanted to do something big in a big way in the martial arts. And one of the biggest statements you can make in just from where I was at was, one, have a Taj Mahal. I want to have a dojo that is physically present. It's making a statement. So I was kind of out there with that. But the whole time I was in a small room in my parents' home. Started there. My dad built a little storage area, and I got him for that before he could even store anything in. I said, you know what? That would make a great dojo. How about this? So I was bargaining. I was using people skills with my own family and showing them the vision. But I think a big part of it is you got to get clear on your vision first, and then you can enroll other people to join you in the fight. And that's what I was able to do, was to have people skills, develop people skills. Because I remember Mr. O, my sensei, he said, you got to learn diction. That was my first lesson. He said, like a dictionary, learn how to communicate. And so with that, I went on, and I established the dojo. And I taught there with the thought of always having a building. And so I went to the bank when I was 17. I asked my mother to go with me. I said, I'm going to go to the bank and ask them for a loan. I kind of worked these figures out. And that's another thing too. You need to have a plan. You got to have a business plan. You got to have, not just say, hey, I want a building, but what's your end game? Stephen Covey says, start with the end in mind. So I knew I wanted a facility. I knew I wanted it to be robust. I knew I wanted it to be the big, on a big scale. And I made business plans probably for about 2 years. As I was growing the dojo, I was keeping track of my numbers, stats. I ran my small school like any other professional business. I kept my stats. Anyone asked me, I knew what my retention was. I knew how many leads I was getting. I was on top of that at that time. And so that's a big part of it. Why? Because you got to be able to take that and communicate that to, if you're raising funds to build a facility, to get someone on board. They want to know that you're going to be able to produce. So I would say that that's a really long answer. I apologize. But I mean but that's what you got to do. You got to have a clear vision. You got to start tracking what you're doing to make sure that that you're even ready for whatever step you are in that process. You got to know where you are, and the only way you know where you are is know your stats, know your numbers. I started knowing because after about 3 months of teaching at my parents' home, after 3 months I had about 35, 40 students. I said, oh man, we got something good starting here, because people were interested, people were signing up, people were adding on to the momentum. And then from there I took 86, 87, 88, about 8 years. It was a process before I reached the point where I could get the building built. I went to the bank at 18 and asked them for about a $500,000. I said, I want to build a martial arts school. I want you to help me finance this thing. They laughed me out of the building. They told me, are you kidding me? And how old are you? I said, I'm 18. They said, okay. So they didn't take me serious at all. So I got with my parents. I said, we have to come up with a new strategy. So here was the strategy. If I could do what it would take to purchase the land, I could leverage the land. And so that was what I focused on, being able to find the place that I wanted and to be able to just acquire the land as a first step. But along the way, relationships in the bank, uh, I got led to the SBA, and a woman in there named Cecilia Gregory, I'll never forget her. She said, "You've got a dream. We're the SBA, and we've got a special program where we partner. We don't take on all the liability. We partner with the bank, and we each do our piece to help support you. And I believe in what you're talking about." In other words, I was able to share clearly with numbers, with vision, what I had in mind. And she was able to see that it was possible and plausible. And she didn't judge the fact that it was a martial arts school. She judged the fact of my numbers, my revenue, and my projections. I was doing projections when I was 18 or 19 years old. And really, we say projections, it really just comes down to really taking a moment and really being thoughtful and having those stats and knowing that, hey, if it continues at this rate to grow, I can project X, Y, and Z. And I was able to show her that. So, yeah, she got behind it, connecting me with the bank. And the same bank that had laughed me out of the doors a few years later, with the help of partnering with the right people, uh, we went to Raleigh, which is next door to the Capitol, to that bank's headquarters. She plugged me in with the president there. We all sat together. They agreed and got behind the project. So that's a very long answer, but that was how it happened. Then we were able to, once securing the land, leverage that, and we're able to go ahead and build the building. So,
well,
yeah.
there's a couple things in there because if you're going to buy a home and the process and the building is the same because your qualifications are the same, but you got to have the mindset that you really want to be a owner. And I think that's really important. So once you do that, you can move to that next step, because if you don't have, and we come back to the same thing that holds so many business owners, whether they're martial artists or not, that holds them back, is that they don't think of what they're doing as a profession. And if you don't think it's a profession, the bank's not going to deal with you because you have not done everything that you need to do. So if you want to start on the process of owning your own schools, stop renting, start today and make that decision, and now start moving forward. If you've been in business for 10 years, do the math. How much money have you spent in rent that you will never get back? And so what is my next thing for me to do? The next thing to do is to make a decision and now create a plan, because I can talk all day long about what I'm doing, but I need to have a plan. And that plan is not building the building. The plan is building your business. If you got the capital sitting around that you can go and make that decision, and then that's great. But if you don't, then you've got to be able to look at, how am I going to build, to build that revenue. So that's the place that you really want to think about in that, in that process, because that whole process is actually a journey. So I know you were talking about, you started off, in your family's home, of just doing something that you love, doing what you love to do. I just wrote an article last night talking about being able to do what you love to do and get paid for it. And so I think that is number one. I want to own my martial arts school. I don't want to pay rent. That is the start there, and making that decision. You don't want to rent, because you can now own, the property. Go out and start looking at property. Nothing happens until you take an action. So now you want to, and start with your school. You say, well, I can't afford to go do that. Well, that's where you want to start. You want to start with creating a consistent monthly revenue, but you need to find out, how much money would it take for me, or what should my income be for me to be able to purchase a property? How much would property cost? Maybe I want to be in this section of town, which is a great section, versus an okay section of town. what is it that I want to do? And again, the power to live your vision is about being able to have that vision and then come up with a strong student retention. Because in order to create wealth in this business, then you have to have retention. Anyone that doesn't sign someone up on a membership, you are wasting your time, because
that was yeah, I don't mean to interrupt. You pressed the button. You pressed a lot of buttons, but I'm gonna go to that one. And that was the advantage that I had coming up in a professional organization. Even at my parents' home, everyone was still on membership. Everyone signed on the dotted line. I was committing. I expected them to commit because that's what I saw growing up. I was blessed to be there to see that, hey, it's no different. And this was the example I was given, that I was taught. It's no different when you run your credit card and you sign that little piece of paper. That's the only thing. You're just saying, hey, I agree to take care of what I said I would pay for what I ran on this card. It's the same mentality. So I think one of the big advantages I had, I did see others, but I was young enough not to get caught up with I trusted in the fact that I saw people who were being successful already. And the fact that you're hearing me talk about it, or anyone else who's owned their own businesses or buildings or properties, which there are quite a few people, whether it's a home or a business, like what you said a moment ago, it's the same idea, but it goes back to number one. I was young and I knew it was possible. I didn't let myself get in my way. I just knew I just needed to do the things, and I moved. So it goes back to what you're encouraging everyone to do now, is start today. It wasn't, there's not going to be a perfect time for you to start. So you might as well start today. That's an illusion. That's actually a delusion. It's not happening. The other part I want to touch on real quick, you said it, decision. Napoleon Hill did a whole chapter in Think and Grow Rich on the power of making a decision. And the opposite of making a decision is procrastination, putting it off. There, like I said, that is the power, is to make a real decision. And the other thing is, everything manifests from your thought. So like, I love what you said, because when you have the vision and you believe in the vision, you go into action, you'll attract people that will help you. Because I didn't do this all by myself. What I mean is, there were people that opened doors, introduced me to that person as I was building, the clientele. And then back to your point about retention. You can love what you do and do it, but like you said, to really make a go of it, you need to be a professional. Not just do the activity you love, but be a professional at it. What's the difference between a professional and an amateur, right? So it's learn how to be a professional no matter what you're doing. I agree with you. And then the final point I would add to what you said is, or to tack on to what you said, is identity. What identity? Like, create your character, man. I wanted to create the Grand Master. That was, looking at Kung Fu and all the movies and reading the books. I wanted to be that guy. I was like you seeing Chuck Norris with his trophy and going, I want to be that guy. What does that look like? So do the same thing with owning a building. I want to be that guy. I don't necessarily want to be the one that's giving the check to the other guy. I want to be the guy that gets the check. I was having humor with it. I took a car in yesterday, saw an old friend from high school, and he said, we were just joking. I said, oh man, you got your credit card out. You might as well take care of mine too. He said, oh man, this is my wife's credit card. We were just joking around. And then he said, it's better to give than to receive. I said, okay, you give, I'll receive. So it's all about perspective. I want to be the guy that the rent check is being given to, instead of the one that's giving the rent check, if possible. It just gives you a different place to work from. So it depends on your willingness to step into an identity or a role. So yeah.
You over there taking notes, Nathan?
Yes, I'm taking notes from myself.
I don't want to get you excited or anything like that. Because when I get you excited, you just want to take
I gotta
off.
That's why we're gonna do, that's why it's got to be a program over a period of time. It's a lot, it's 40 years. The dojo here has been a work in progress for 40 years. It was 42 years in this building and 8 years getting to the building, or 32, yeah, 32 and 8, yep, 32 years, 8 years getting to the building. It's a beautiful story, and it has beautiful use of the principles. A lot of it I was blessed to do, and I was a unconscious competent. I was being competent, but I wasn't processing it. I was just doing it. So I'll be quiet now. You all just go ahead and do the thing. Go ahead and do the thing, man. Don't keep talking about it. Just do the thing.
Well, the thing with this, if you love what you do, you can be successful. And, and when you're successful, and again, Grandmaster Ray is super successful. In fact, I don't really know of anyone else in the martial arts, maybe one or two other people that actually own their own property. So it's a whole mentality shift. And for the next generation, that's where you need to be. So on my 7 things I wanted to share, I'll go back to number 2.
We're on 2.
we're on number 2, and we only have a couple of minutes left. So, again, and that's what we're saying is that you have to think about the retention, because the bank wants to know what is your retention. How many students do you have? How many are you enrolling? How many are you losing? So that's another strong point. So my number 2 is you have to build a student retention. If you're doing month to month, the bank don't even want to talk to you because you don't have a retention, because every month you're trying to re-register those same students back into your program. And then you want to have a cash reserve in place. So if you make money, that's great. But if you spend all your money, then you have the other problem. You can't make the down payment or the necessary funds that it needs for you to be able to do that. So the average is being responsible is having at least 3 to 6 months of operating expense saved. So you look at how much money it takes you to run your martial arts school. You need to have at least 3 to 6 months of cash saved up that you don't have. If something happens, then okay, you're good. You can make it through that. And then you have to establish, my number 4 is you have to establish your business credit. Now, the value of the credit reporting system. So the credit reporting system is a business of checking your behavior with money. That's what it is. So they record your spending record. And if I want to know, I like you, Master Ray, but when it comes down to money, I need my money, dude. They want to know, are you going to give me my money back? Are you going to give me a return on my investment? So that number 4 is establish your credit, your business credit. Okay. Then you want to take and come. My number 5 is profitability operation. Is your school, is it profitable? You tell me, well, we didn't make any money. We're not making really any money, then you need it. Then you won't be able to go to that next level. So this is an opportunity for you to change your thinking. If you're saying, you telling me so I can actually own my building, have an investment when I decide to retire, I can now move forth and be able to use that. I can borrow against my school the equity in my building. So I can now reinvent myself through ownership. Number 6 is to outgrow your current space. So don't put you say, I got this little bit of building here, it's about, 800 square feet. So you want to think about outgrowing that space. Number 7 is having, and this is where Grandmaster Ray you have to have a long time vision and commitment. And sir, that's what you have actually done, again, owning your property that long. And so you can see the equity build up and the different things that you've been able to do by doing that. So that's what we want to encourage. So our podcast today is a think about. So think about if you're in a martial art business, dance school, or whatever you're doing, becoming a property owner is important. Now
Oh
you
yeah,
can go.
yeah. No, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be good. But and this, I really want to lean into the intangible side of things. That power of thought and vision is just so important because it's gonna fuel everything else. Because you're gonna run into roadblocks. But you should have seen me. I was in high school sitting at my family in the kitchen. They have a bar. And I remember now that I'm thinking about it, at the time I was just doing the thing. I remember sitting there with stacks of the dojo's records, going through it and organizing. We didn't have AI and Chat GPT then.
Computers.
So yeah, not yeah. Compute. No. I was trying to use basic and try to do something that wasn't working. So it was manual. But the good thing about manual is you're hands on, you're aware of what's going on. And I think in a lot of ways, I know I worked with two of your guests, I think from yesterday, Grandmaster Jeff Smith and Stephen Oliver. And I am excited because many of the things that they reiterate or iterating to the group are things that I came across in my journey as well, which is at the end of the day, all the automations are awesome. But automation doesn't just mean digital automation. You can have a default behavior. You talked about credit. You can have default behaviors that become quote unquote automations. Do you take care of things on time? Are you being responsible? I was very blessed because I hadn't torn up my credit or anything because I was too young. I hadn't built up that much credit. So one of my challenges was actually um, showing that, but I was able to show it because I had a track record of paying my bills in my dojo, the things I was responsible. I still had a track record that they could lean into. And so you all can do it once you decide, knowing it's possible, having that vision. I know some professional athletes, they should be professional athletes, golfers. I met some young men, they could hit a ball and man. And my thought was, if I was you and I wanted to do golf with your talent, I would be a professional right now. So I would ask them, I wouldn't say that to them that way, but I was thinking it. And they would come up with every excuse in the world. And the number one excuse came down to, well, I don't have the money. When you really want it and you go after it and you've decided, the money will show up. You will be able to organize and draw and attract that to you. But that's why I said it goes kind of to the intangible. But making a real decision and really going after that thing, everything else will show up if you commit. But if you're half-hearted, wishy-washy, it probably won't happen that way. So I just encourage you all, know it's possible. Reach out to us. I want to check out my new digs. I want to thank Elite Publication for sponsoring us, and we're on Roku and Spotify. And I just say check back in. This is a big subject, so check back in. We're gonna if you want to reach us, you can reach Dr. Bowen or myself. What is the email address?
Well, we have a
Dr.
new
Bowen?
website that we're working on, and in the
Okay,
book,
cool.
and I'm going to drop that link into our posts where you can go click on and check out. We're writing a book, and the book, guess to what the name of it is. The book is titled "The Power to Live Your Vision," and
Right.
that's what we're really about: is that power to live your vision, enjoy your life, and understand that it's very powerful. You know, and you have to leave. And that's the last thing I'm going to say, and we're getting ready to end here. You know, when I actually made the purchase of my home, I was the first male in my family to own property.
Wow.
You know, because see, that's why I said it's the mentality, you know, of it. And that's what you have to change. Now that when I in my family, so
That's it.
that goes back a very long time.
Generations, man. Generations. Yeah.
It goes back in generations because and that goes back to your mentality. So if it goes back
Yeah.
into your your generation that whether you should, you could, or whatever, then you have to start there and make that change. You know,
Yes, sir.
and so as we try to erase history and all those other things that are so important, this is why your legacy important because you know, and then you know, like I said, my kids were the first ones to graduate from college. You got to take care of yourself. You got to have a mentality. It doesn't rely on your family, anyone else. So being successful is actually a mindset that you actually grow to. So we got several things that we're doing. Of course, we know we have the podcast. We just launched a brand new website, which is the Martial Arts Extraordinaire Magazine.com. Then we have our Author magazine. So get with us and let us know how we can help you. You want to set up a personal coaching session, we can do that. We're both certified coaches, so we're not just two guys over here having a conversation. You know, we've actually, you know, been to school, learned the business, understand, studied with some of the best. And, you know, so that's what we're bringing you. So we're not guys on the corner. You know, we got a proven track record of what we've done and who we've done it with. So, you know, we can help you to become better at what you are doing and understand the power to live your vision. But remember, stop renting, start building your legacy. So that's what that means when we're talking about, you know, because you're building, that's something you can pass on to your family. You know, that's valuable, that's tangible. You know, that's really about you. I'm going to let you have the last words here.
Well, I just encourage everyone. This is a big subject. Anyone who would like advice and to have a discussion to learn more one-on-one, just check us out. Check out all the website and reach out to us for a session so we can chat. I want to thank you again for this subject because now you really got my wheels turning. So we're going to produce some material for everyone coming up real soon.
Well, I tell you, write a book, and everyone, write a book. You got knowledge, write a book. Put it.
You got 100 people you're looking for, right?
That's right. That's right. We're launching our 100 off the program. Write a book. Is there something you're good at that you have expertise in? It can be something you're bad at, and you can tell me what not to do. So again,
but
there's a market
Napoleon
for that.
Hill did that. He didn't just study the most successful people. He studied the ones that were failing too.
That's right. That's exactly right. So we want you to know that, the power to live your vision is about where you are in your life this very moment and how for you to get to that next step. So again, congratulations to all the martial artists that are on our program today, that have been writing in our magazine, that have received awards. Again, congratulations to you. Hey, God bless. And hey, we're going to see you guys next time. So remember, go to our website, which is elitepublications.org. You can go to our new magazine website, which is www.martialartsextraordinairemagazine.com. Reach out to us on social media, follow us, like what we're doing, share it with a friend. Hey, we're going to see you, everyone. God bless.